Well, hello, this is Rusty Glove Box, and here today in the shop what I'm going to show you is how to make a Kydex knife sheath. You could even use this same technique on a gun holster. This is how I do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but let me show you just the different steps that I use. This is just a template that I had made, just very simple, basic, out of paper, printer paper. And you just sort of lay your knife on there. You'll want the back of the knife on this side, and you'll be heating the Kydex and folding it over and then putting it in the Kydex press. The loop I'm going to be showing you how to make is going to be like a riveted in belt loop. Well, this Kydex, it has two sides. This side is generally a little duller and flatter, but it has a kind of a leather grain texture. On the other side, it's a slicker, glossier side, and for my application, I generally use this on the inside. You'll set your template out. And I just mark where my corners are going to be using this template. I don't bother drawing that over. I'll just go ahead and run that to the end, and because I can always cut it off later. I'll use a nice straight edge, draw a nice heavy dark line. I'm using a pencil. It's real easy to rub that pencil mark off, especially on this slick side. Well, I'm using the steel rule out of a little adjustable T-square, and I've got what looks to be a good sharp blade in my utility knife. I put some good downward pressure on that, and I make several scores down that line. So you make good deep scores. You don't have to just push in just really hard, but I'll get these others scored out and we'll go to the next step. I'm trying to get it the right angle. I think right there you can see how I scored it, and it's a nice heavy score line. I'm going to show you, I'm scoring this, and you need to be a little careful because not all this Kydex is the same. Some of it's a little more brittle than others, but you can get a good starting shape to work with. You can save all your odd and end pieces. You can probably make a flashlight holder or something like that out of it. I've got a little extra material here that I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut off. What I'm doing right here is I'm positioning the knife on the knife sheath blank here, and because these knife scales, they don't have any contours here close to the edge, I'm kind of tempted to run this in maybe a little deeper than normally would, so it will make a little more contact here at the handle area, so it won't be too easy to slide out. I've got it in about where I want it. I like to run a pencil mark so I'll know how deep to run it, and just kind of an outline. I think you can see that sort of. So we're getting ready to heat the Kydex so we can bend it, and what I like to do is to stick masking tape on the blade. For one, I run a lesser risk of scratching the blade while I'm messing with it here on the table. and two, it creates just a little extra clearance right now. When I stick it in the press, it's going to conform to the shape of that knife, and so it leaves just a few thousandths extra clearance in case you need it. If it's really too loose, you can always kind of heat it and repress it again, maybe without it. So anyway, we'll get started. Well, right here I made a little blank. That's going to kind of simulate the width of the belt. It's an 1 3/4 piece of 1/4-inch plywood, and I went ahead and sanded the edges up on it, so maybe a little later I'm less likely to throw this away. I'll be able to see its kind of finished edges, and I'll hang on to it. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll heat the Kydex, I'll put my template in there, we'll put it in the press, crank down on it, and we'll see how it accepts the shape. That made a nice, neat, tight little belt loop, not puffed out too much, and so that ought to work pretty nice. And I like the way that looks. Well, what I did here, I kind of cut that wild tail off the bottom of it, is down about here, and so I trimmed it up. Kind of tapered these edges here, and decided where I was going to put my rivets. And I'm getting ready to drill the holes, and we'll insert those rivets shortly. Well, here I like to use a piece of wood as my backer. I'm using the 1/4-inch eyelet rivets, and so I'll be drilling a 1/4-inch hole. Well, what I've done, I've kind of contoured this edge, done it a little different, and contoured this edge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rivets in the hole. I like to push them in from like the inside. Alright, what I do, I put the head of the rivet into my die there. And I crank down on it. And so that makes a nice little eyelet. Holds the loop nice and firm. All right, we'll let that cool a bit, and we'll see how that shape came out. All right, it's cooled a bit, and we're going to take it out of the press. See if we like that. This stuff, if you're not crazy about how it turned out, you can always reheat it, and you can give it another try. That right there, I like the way that it's got a little drag on it, getting it in and out. So I feel like we got a pretty good contact with it, and I think I like that. What I did, I got the rough shape that I'm going for, and now I'm just going to use the Dremel tool just to kind of do some, I guess, more detailing to get to the final shape. Well, here's our finished sheath. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to the buffer and kind of polish these edges, but I'm going to pretty much consider this one done. I like how it fits nice and snug, not too tight. You don't have to sit there and wrestle with it, but it's not going to fall out. So, well, here's our completed knife sheath. I've got the edges polished and all of that, and I'm real happy how this one turned out. I think it's one of my best ones I've made so far, and just real pleased with it. Well, anyway, that's how I make a knife sheath, and every time I make one I learn something from it. And so anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. This is Rusty Glove Box, and I'm out of here.